Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 62 of Midnight Poppyland. And we are here with Tori, Tanya, and Vita, who all waved their hand to those who are listening.
You guys.
All right. So I was just telling the co-hosts that today is the first time I'm doing a podcast without having read through all the Patreon comments, but that's what happens when you're busy. So I apologize if I am lacking insights that others have shared, because normally I gain a lot from people's comments. So anywho, Poppy is, thinking, I don't know if he thinks of me as a friend at the very least, but I hope he does. Right. And this is always like, Poppy is kind of lying to herself, friend, or more than friends, friend. And Tora is standing there with his arms folded and, the chaos of Airy Street behind him. And she continues thinking, because I often feel like I'm just a poppy seed tumbling in the wind and I don't have much else to offer anyone except my friendship. I'm like, oh, but Poppy, all we want from you is your friendship. Like, what else do people offer except themselves?
Absolutely. So I made a note. I wish I started taking notes on this chapter. And then when I got to 3 pages, I was like, oh, dear Lord. Oh. But okay. There's I feel like I always come back to this. There are so many parallels between Poppy and Tora. And I just really wanted to share that one where, what was it? She feels like she doesn't have, she literally feels like she doesn't have anything to offer Tora. If you remember, literally chapter 57, this is just 5-6 chapters ago, I can't math right now. Tora was literally like, yeah, I don't know what I could offer her either. So they're totally in the same boat, which again, it's just one of the parallels that I think Lily is just so good at doing, just beautifully interweaving.
So sad to hear this. I thought Poppy had a little bit more self-regard than that.
Yeah. So is it essentially a communication situation that they still haven't learned to communicate properly with each other, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of we're still circling each other. Timeline wise, it's only been less than a month and we're still trying to figure out the vibes, and she just met all of these people that he's around, so now she's like, what is this world?
Now one guy says, hey boys, I got a question. And she thinks the end of her thought is, and my glitter pens and fancy stationery, of course. That's what she has to offer him.
Yeah.
So the guy in front, do we have a name for him? You want to give him a name?
I do. So I can't remember.
He does have a name later.
It was Emily, right? Or what?
I think he does have a name later. I just remembered, like Christopher or something. But I think it's later.
There was a comment, I can't remember, Emily Bass or somebody else said that the other guy was an off-brand Joker. Yeah. And I finally figured out who this guy reminds me of. Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy, that Ron, the Ron guy?
The blue guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is identical. I love that.
So he says, he's the only one who has eyes in this whole scene. He says, even meatheads can count to 6, yeah? Not too much to ask for, because I presume because there are 6 of them there. And if he knows what's good for him, he better. Look at that fool, too scared to talk now. Okay, my screen blanked out. Hold on. Oh, goodness gracious. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh. The guy says, all you need is to mind your own business and hand over the girl, and we'll let you leave this place in one piece. They're all smirking behind him, so be a good boy and calmly walk away like you didn't see anything. And Poppy gets very offended, and she yells, stop that, in giant letters. And she's still continuing to think. She thinks, to be honest, I'm not even sure what he thinks of me. And she's, turned around at this point, not when the world he's from is so vastly different from mine. And this is, again, the issue of the story. And we have those guys still looking, but Poppy just out of nowhere says, if you know what's good for you, maybe you should show some respect to him. You got the slightest idea who he is. ugh, and that expression on her face. She's like,
that panel is so gorgeous. It's like she's the tigress that is awoken, and Tora's like,
he like,
oh, okay.
eyes wide.
But then, sorry guys, but then if you think about it, just backtrack a little on the previous episode, he stopped her from running away. So he's in a way he's encouraging her to stand her ground. That's how I see it as. That she's so used to, you know, if she can't handle something, she'll run away from it. But he's like, no, face up to this situation and let's see how we can deal with it. That's my take on it anyway.
What I thought was really interesting too was the fact that she has a really hard time defending herself. But like the moment someone goes after like one of her people, she'll be like, bitch, no.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You stand the heck back. Like she does not put up with it at all. And I think too, when he like straightens up, what I took from this as well, like this is Tora. He's been like a lone wolf. Well, maybe he has like the thuglets and stuff, but he's never really had anyone that really has his back. Maybe not Joe in particular, where he felt like he could really trust himself to rely on them. And I feel like the fact that Poppy is putting herself out there for Tora on his behalf, like that's why he has like this jerking reaction to it, because it's like, oh, someone's looking out for me for a change type of thing. And it's a nice
made me wonder, like, has anybody ever physically stood up for him like she's doing right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For Jude. And Poppy is thinking about his experience, everything you guys are saying. Did he grow up in these angry, violent streets as a child, a teenager, a young adult? And she's putting herself in his shoes and understanding the setting in which he grew up and what he had to go through. And, you know, Tora kind of has first that surprise face and straightened up, and then that like flummoxed cartoon face. What does something so terrifying to me feel like to him? And those guys again, and they're like, the guy gives this jeer. He's like, sorry, no idea who the F he is, to be honest. Oh, well. And she thinks, but more than that, okay, well, we'll have to go through a couple panels to get to it. It's a little hard to keep track of the internal monologue. And those guys behind them are making fun because they don't know who he is. And they're like, damn, pussies think they're so tough just because they go to the gym. Yeah, why don't you ask him if he knows who we are? And, you know, Tora and Poppy are just looking at them. And Poppy's like, Tora, aren't you going to say something? You're just going to let them talk down to you like that?
That's so cool. Yeah, and he just shrugs it off. He's like, nah, these are gnats. They're just newcomers.
Yeah. But also he's assessing the situation as well. So he knows whether he can handle himself very well. But I think he's just sussing them out, saying, you know, like you said, they're just like little gnats and stuff like that. And what did he say? He said in one of the panels, he said they're newcomers.
Yeah, well. He shrugs the newcomers.
So he'll know that they're all got that what they call it? Is it braggadocio or something like that? Sort of bragging, like looking as if a tough guys, you know. They're great thugs, if that, for want of a better word. You know?
What did he go through as a kid to be so completely at ease in the middle of all this chaos? And you know, he's just leaning back against the wall, and he's just thinking to himself, "What you gonna do next?" So feisty. He's enjoying it. He's blushing. He loves seeing Poppy like this.
Yeah.
I was trying to find the comment so it was in episode 59. The street stall vendors are like, the louder the lower, and it just like reflects on back. That comment reflects here because Tora's not making a sound. And so the louder the lower, the quieter the higher. I feel like that's all that it needs to be said. Like, he doesn't have to prove himself, because it'll, like, eventually actions will do it for him, and he doesn't have to like keep talking like they are.
As it's been, like you said, a month, I would have thought that this would come across, you know, your mind, but maybe she doesn't even know enough about that world to even know what to think about. And she thinks to herself, now your level of confidence is very admirable, Tora, but it's a matter of pride. Interesting. And then she whispers and kind of attacks him, and she tries to unzip his sweater, which everyone is excited about. And she's like, do your tattoos indicate clan hierarchy? Can you get them to leave if you show it to them? Which I think is pretty clever on her part. Like, it's reasonable.
But it's also highlighting her naivety about thug life as well. I think she thinks that they just show their tattoos, they know who's who and stuff like that. But he's been in the game since he was a child, so he knows he need to do that. But it is quite funny actually watching her thinking that's all he has to do for them to back down.
I like how he's just like, oi! Like, I can't imagine him actually saying that, but he's so flustered. It's like so funny, his face.
And this was actually another parallel too. It's really funny because you think like Tora's really action oriented and Poppy is more verbal. But when it comes to making the other person feel uncomfortable, like it's Poppy's actions that make Tora blush and Tora's words that make Poppy blush. And you'll notice towards the end of the chapter, he was like, oh yeah, we can continue this at 8 o'clock in my place. Like she gets beet red. So I thought that was really clever too, how I don't know. I think Lily's brilliant.
And then they have like the most hilarious like pun. She's like, tit for tat. She's like, that is hilarious. Like, damn it, you did not just go there. Yeah, I did, because I actually wasn't quite sure exactly what it meant at first, but it's the picture that he took of her, cleavage coming out, and so yeah, like the equal exchange. You can't let these jerks get away with disrespecting you like that. If you don't do something, then I will, unless it's meant to be a secret identity. And he does unzip his sweater a bit, and he's like, kid, we don't hide that shit from anyone. The more people know, the better. And look, I'd be more than happy to strip for you. But tats like these don't mean jack shit to anyone around here. It's not what civilians like to think. Heck, my boss hates them. And Bobby's like, oh, I thought I was going on a limb. I think they look intimidated though, so it's working. And he's like, with a damn hamster clinging to me.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting actually, because I think he's lying, to be honest. Because remember when he met with Dr. Lamb, he had the neck tattoo covered. So right. I think he's more calculating. Like when he's on Aries Street, he wants everyone to see the tattoos and to know like who the tight-knit communities are. But kind of what he's saying about civilians, I'm not going to take him quite at his word, because he did intentionally cover the tattoo with Mr. Lamb. And I think that was to protect him, not to feel intimidated, because he and, what's that other guy's Shark? Yeah, to protect him, like to not make the connection between him and Shark.
Yeah, and we do know that everyone who knows that Baltuman symbol is like, oh my God, they're Baltuman. So like, I think that tattoo is effective.
Yeah, for sure.
And, he's like, fat chance, sweetheart, as fat as your hamster ass. Meanwhile, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I looked up pictures of hamster butts because I was like, how accurate is this? There's like a lot of it's so freaking accurate.
I was disturbed by the level of like hamster butt thickness that's happening there. I was like, what is going on?
You know that Poppy definitely squeaked. She was like, or something like that.
Well, and Vita, it goes back to your point where he's just like talking about how fat her ass is because he's so uncomfortable and it's just like word vomit. And then she gets so uncomfortable, even though they're in front of a huge group of thugs who are trying to attack them. We're still going to have this awkward moment together because we can't help ourselves. And it's hilarious.
But what's interesting too is that the thugs are like, here's where you see why the thugs are like newbies or just very low on the totem pole. Like they're placing an order. Like they're not paying attention to anything. Like, someone's on the phone. It's like, oh, I gotta go. Like what?
Hey, their stomach is their priority. I can understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that whole thing, it also humanizes them, I said Tanya to a Diet Coke, stupid, I'm on the phone, talk to you later. It's hilarious. And Tora is also, like you said, being, flirtatious. She's like, how about I give you a crash course of thug life? 5 place tonight, 8, now's not the time. And the guy's
so do you think the crash course on thug life is a euphemism for something else rather than a crash course on thug life?
I don't know.
I think he uses euphemisms a lot, like in the club. She's like, are you good at dancing? And he's like, horizontally, like he likes to get his point across but still get away with it. Like if somebody were to walk past, it wouldn't seem like he's saying anything, but she very well knows what he's saying.
Meanwhile, the leader is like, the F is this Area Street rom-com?
Yeah, clap it. I mean, it is.
Like, step aside, punk, that rat is ours, which is like, excuse me, I don't tolerate a rat. And Poppy keeps thinking, not because she never asked those questions, not because they've never occurred to me, but because I don't think I'm ready for them to be answered. Okay, so now she does explain that, which is, sometimes you don't want to think about something, so you push it out of your mind because you don't want the answers. Very relatable. And Poppy's like, you can call me whatever you want if it makes you feel better about yourself, but I'm not going anywhere with you. And even the beginning, even in this situation, she has remarkable sympathy. I mean, that first statement like shows insight into what at least Poppy feels, why people put other people down to make them feel better about themselves. And that's quite level-headed of her to be able to say that when they're insulting her like that and threatening her at this moment.
But have you seen the transformation that Poppy's gone through? At the beginning, she's scared, her back's facing them, she can't face them. Then as things progress in the time, she's becoming more and more and more courageous in the way she's able to tackle these thugs, these other guys that are trying to attack her as well. And it's quite admirable seeing how she's transformed in such a short space of time.
And you say that, and like even her body's pointed towards Tora, like she's kind of drawing her confidence from his attitude.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why this like the way his profile is in this panel where she's saying you can call me whatever you want, it really, like, if you were to crop him out and put his picture up next to the picture right before they meet at the restaurant, and he thinks back to when he was getting judged by his appearance, and he has that flashback to when he's a teenager wearing the backpack and the dyed hair. It's like the same exact stance to me, and it's like this isn't his first time, it's not and he just kind of stands there and waits for it to be over, or waits for whatever move to be made to happen. And it's just, I don't know why, it just really struck a chord with me, like that stance where his arms are at his side and he's just like head kind of down, and he's like waiting for whatever's going to happen. And it's like he's ready to move.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, just wearing the same outfit, so that would be a reminder.
Actually, he's not wearing, I have a point. It's more foreshadowing for the next chapter, but he's not wearing the same outfit. Okay.
You want to go into it now?
I can go into it now. Okay. The only other time we've seen him wear that jacket was actually in a flashback episode with Yadori. So remember, they had a meeting at Vincent's birthday party, and then they met again, and Yadori was saying like, oh, you've had like a lady friend, what's it like, what is your relationship with her, and being like super sleazy. And this was when Tora beat him up, because he was making insinuations. And if you remember, he was thinking about this when he was in the apartment with Poppy, and he was visibly shaken to the point where he couldn't even hear her call out. He was wearing that dragon sweater when he was punching Yadori, or Yadora. No, I think it's Yadori. Yeah. So I think it's foreshadowing for the next chapter that in the same way he protected Poppy in that flashback, he's going to protect her again. I don't know if it's through physical violence or if it's going to be through a really clever tactic. I think either way, like there's a lot to say for either way, because it's like Poppy sees him for who he really is or who he's trying to be. You can make the argument either way. I think at the core though, because that jacket is the same, it's like he's there to protect Poppy and he's going to protect Poppy, period.
Right. As a segue to what Vita has said, if we go back a few episodes, when did Vincent tell Tora to get rid of Poppy? If you guys remember.
Yeah, so I don't think
he did, or to deal with her. And the reason why I say that is based upon what you've said about Tora protecting her. If it's going to be covert, is it openly going to, I reckon at some point or another she's going to see him lash out for, you know, for the reasons that need to be done. Yeah. But also he may find ways of hiding her because of her, maybe you know, of her connection due to was it Goliath going missing as well. So and the papers going, and the papers that kicked this all off essentially. So yeah,
that was one thing that ran through my head, was what, you know, I think there's been a lot of theories going around about how he's like, is he going to hide her? When I first read episode 62, that popped in my head of like worry about that, because if they're already being seen on the streets together, newcomers or not, you know, is that going to get around, and does that matter? You know, does that, you know?
I think it could, because there is a connection between Nicholas and Goliath. They used to be coworkers. Sorry, Nicholas is
the Yondu guy, right?
No, it's Joker wannabe. We find out his name later in this chapter.
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah, you're right, because back in Best Waffles or whatever that.
Waffle guy. Yeah, so we finally have a name for him, Nicholas.
Does not suit him at all. Nicholas is like so dignified.
Well, it suits his mother, and I feel like we got a vibe of what his mother was trying to do with him.
But yeah, there's a connection there between Goliath. He's the one that that's probably how he even became a gang member to begin with, when he sold the politician out to the police. They got a lot of money. I'm sure you talked about this in a previous podcast, but that's how I interpreted like him.
So anyway, Poppy, you know, at this point, like Tora's kind of behind lighting a cigarette, and Poppy steps forward and she's like, I'm under his protection, so back off. I love it. And she continues thinking, and maybe the reason why is too simplistic or even pessimistic. And now there's a very interesting conversation. And he's like, don't give me that BS. And if he's clan, like what you're hinting at, which means he doesn't even know he's clan, right? Why would he want to be involved with a civilian like you? And they can tell she's a civilian. That much they can tell. Does he have a death wish or what? Do you even understand what it means to walk in this world? And then she keeps thinking about it, I've always felt. And at this point, like kind of you see the focus is on Tora now, because basically Lily is telling us he is paying close attention to what's you know, the conversation is about, because it's obviously something that's very, very close to his heart. And he continues, are you going to call the cops on him when shit turns sour between the both of you? Because you have a squeaky clean record and he doesn't? Oh my gosh. And that's like poignant. That really hits hard.
Yeah, so you notice that he immediately lights up. He talked about how the cigarettes are kind of like his anchor when your world's going crazy. And it reminds me of when he started smoking, when Vincent throws the statue angel and like having a temper tantrum over all the stuff that's happening in the clan, and he's like smoking immediately. Like I don't know if anybody's ever seen Kill Bill, but those sirens are going off in Tora's head right now, and he's like, oh crap.
But he's also mentioned why he smokes as well. If you go back to season 1 as well, he uses it sort of a crutch, so to speak, to, you know, sort of stress, I say, want for a better word, stress relief, I suppose.
Yeah, and he's like super stressed right now because the guy is asking the question that Tora wants the answer to. Essentially, like, what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah. But you know, when he says, do you even understand what it means to walk in this world? Poppy best take up that invitation for the 101 Fug Life.
Like, will you give me lessons, sir?
I think I may have lost all of my notes for the chapter. I'm like crying right now. That's okay. But I wanted to mention I have an observation about that as well with how Tora uses cigarettes. Going back to that chapter too. I don't know if it's premature. I would rather wait until we get to that other scene to let you know what my thoughts are. Okay. Because I think Poppy does something really, really clever. The other thing that I thought was really interesting too, so we call Yandu, is that what we're calling him? He perfectly, like, it's like crazy how he just kind of laser points his focus on literally one of Poppy's biggest insecurities with Tora, and then in the next panel, one of Tora's biggest insecurities with Poppy. Like, it's like those are two huge things, and Poppy both thinks about calling the cops when she's in the apartment after Tora leaves, and she recognizes the danger of the situation with Mr. Lamb. And even then, she decided to protect Tora when she wasn't even that close to him. And then just a couple chapters, like 1 or 2 chapters back, she has that same consideration again, like, should I call the cops? She's having this internal war with herself. And literally the next panel is Yandu saying, have you ever seen him hurt anyone? Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And this is like Tora's biggest insecurity, where it's like, no, he is not a bad person. He's not like Shark. He is doing what he has to do to survive day to day. And he is scared that he doesn't want Poppy to view him negatively and to see him for who he is. And again, I think what he said was just so poignant. It's literally just digging into 2 very real insecurities that both Tora and Poppy are grappling with. And, you know, once they talk to each other, like Tanya was mentioning, their relationship will just be stronger for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And meanwhile, she's having this internal dialogue in her head about, she said, I've always thought that similarities bring people closer together and differences force them apart, which, you know, this is a very big difference between them. So obviously very, very crucial for her. Mm-hmm. So we leave at this pivotal moment. And you know what's interesting? Like the last panel you see of Poppy is her blank face, because she doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know what she's feeling. She doesn't know what she's thinking. This is a big question for her. She's a blank. And now we revert back to Candy and Ben. And he's like, I didn't steal from these guys, Mom. I'm not that dumb. Meaning like, well, I can steal from other people, but just not them.
It's so funny.
And then he comes clean and he's like, I took a brooch from a girl I know, but I felt bad because she's hella broke, so I give it back. Or something. And I just wanted to do the right thing for once. So don't effing yell at me again. He's so cute. So hard. It's so hard to admit you're wrong. So a lot of credit to Ben. Like, I know what I did was a shitty thing. And Candy looks at him and she thinks he's telling the truth. I guess he didn't get in trouble with that volume guy after all. Thank God for that. Anyway,
is she referring to oh gosh, oh my goodness, what? Sorry,
I think it was Shark. Yeah,
not Shark. Who's the other guy? No. Oh my goodness, why am I having a senior moment? the Tora, the guy Tora's who Tora's the bodyguard for. My goodness, why have I can see his face. Quincy, that's it. Don't know why I forgot Quincy's face. So yeah, I'm wondering if she was referring to that because of the missing brooch, and then Quincy was trying to ring up Ben to find out like what's happened to this brooch.
I don't think she knows about him, but she was last episode. She was thinking about Shark, who was there, owner of the pawn shop. It seemed like he was the owner of the pawn shop.
Okay.
Yeah,
she thought it was creepy. And now she has a mama moment, and she's like, anyway, I know what he did was wrong, but he chose to do the right thing. Is my little boy finally growing into a man? Starts crying.
I love her.
Every street goddess is inner mom. It's so funny. I realized I titled it wrong. I titled the episode, what did I? Oh no, that was last episode. I titled the Aristry Queen. I meant to title it Aristry Goddess, but okay, whatever. And he's like, oh, what are you crying for? It's like, shut the fuck up. I'm your mom. I can cry whenever the F I want. You know, I have to say, I was so surprised at this personalization of Candy, because I thought, like, way back when we saw her, I just wrote her off as like a ditz, and I was like, yeah, I didn't think she was going to be a character and appear more than once, but like we are really getting you know, to know Candy more and to develop a respect for her.
Yeah I love it.
And it's like, oh, and that girl, go ahead.
But I'm wondering, because you know she has a thing for Tora as well, but Tora's not into her, but she still fancies him. Sorry, you guys would say a crush, wouldn't it? You guys in the UK, you'd say you fancy someone, whereas you guys would say he has a crush. Yeah. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any sort of little rivalry between her and Poppy, because they both want the same. Well, Poppy doesn't know what she wants at this moment in time. She wants Beats Framer. But I am wondering if there's going to be, because if Candy started to become more prominent in this in this cartoon, I'm wondering if there's going to be a situation where it might come to head to head.
I see Poppy being like, "Go girl!" Like I see Poppy wanting to be friends with Candy, if anything. But I think if there would be a competition, it'd be because like Candy felt threatened or something. But I think that's a funny point.
I think honestly she might be confused and maybe threatened, because it's like, oh, why her instead of me? But I have a feeling Poppy is just going to charm the pants off her because she's adorable. I don't know. I don't think Lily is going to take it there, to be honest. We haven't had Candy's character tested too much yet, so I don't know what her actual morals are. I know that she's a good mom. She's doing the best for her kid. And I guess extrapolating from there, I want to think highly of her, and that there won't be this this ongoing tension between her and Poppy.
Well, I wouldn't say ongoing tension per se. So I suppose I'm coming from the angle where, yes, I agree with you. Yes, she's a good mother, and she, you know, her priority is for her son. But when women like the same guy, sometimes the situation can change. Not always in the way you'd like it to be. Sometimes it's friendly rivalry, and whoever dares wins, right? But that's what came up in my mind. But like you said, we'll see how it goes, because you know, this story, as far as I'm aware, how Lily says, it's an evolving story, so she'll change it whatever direction she sees fit.
Yeah.
So he continues, and he's like, oh, and that girl, she's more broke than we are, man. She had to count out all her coins for her groceries, man. And he's like, gee, I can't imagine what that feels like. And is missing some information about their financial or previous financial status.
And it adds layering to her mothering. Like Ben's not aware that Candy's ever had to do that. So
yeah. I picked up on the same thing as well, Tori, that because when she's sweating while she says she can't imagine what that must feel like, she's been there, done that. She just didn't want to share that with her son at that moment in time. Perhaps she just wants to forget that sort of life that she's had to have.
And he's like, yeah, she makes me want to strive for more in life so I won't end up like her, which is very funny. Poppy has that, you know, her ear perking. He's like, hey. And now this guy descends from the stairs, and he's like, sup, doll, you called this down? I sure did. And there's a bunch of guys coming down. How's your face? Damn, Reggie hit you too hard. Whatever, I'm still alive. The boss is watching, couldn't be helped. So, and then he's like, shit, next time tell us if you're going to do something so impulsive. You know, we can't mess with things like early release. So it seems like she asked for early release, and somebody, Reggie, kind of was forced to hit her because of the boss. So, and then she's like, oh, the effort owes me a month foot rub. So I guess it seems like she's friends with this guy, Reggie, but like it's something he has to do. And yeah, that's a very unhealthy work dynamic. And what was going on? Why is she beholden to like this club? And who's the boss? Is it Vincent? Is it someone else? And what's the situation? What happened? Like, I'm sure there's a lot there.
Yeah, I was wondering too if it wasn't just the fact that Ben called her and she had to come down like at that time. I think I don't know. I'm not sure about the timing. I thought that could explain it pretty well too, though.
Doesn't look like it was hit now, and I think she's talking about when she asked for early release before, and also yeah, not here. And now they're like, "Yo, is that Candy's kiddo? We've heard a lot about you, little buddy. She's real proud of you. She can't stop talking about you." And can't stop talking about your grades and stuff. It's my daughter. And then like, he looks kind of familiar though. Have we seen him before at the club? Which is like, yes, you have. Maybe at the dressing table.
You must learn about cats here.
Okay, well, this is my daughter. All about cats, and I will read it after. And he's like, maybe at the dressing table that's covered with his baby tattoos, which is photos. Sorry. Benjamin is so embarrassed. It just shows you she cares so much about her son that it's all covered with his pictures. They're like, yeah, probably that. But I could have sworn someone who looks just like him came to the club a few weeks ago. But I was like, oh, no. And now Candy asks about those punks. She's like, what about those punks? What did you do to them? Nothing, man. I did nothing to them. And Candy's still standing there, super confident. And now those guys are coming over. He's like, damn it, that little shit can run fast. And he's huffing and puffing. And now there's, they're catching up. And he's like, wait, where did all those people come from? He was alone just seconds ago. And then the guy's like, hey, check out that chick over there. Can't stop himself, huh? And they're like, isn't she? And at this point, there's the confrontation because Candy and Ben are surrounded by like a ton of her pals. And there's only like 4 of them. And also we know that Candy is Dollar Store Jared Leto's favorite stripper. So he's like, oh no, dilemma. Like the Captain America thing is like little punk Candy.
Like in that moment, he messed up. Or he knew he had messed up.
Uh-huh. Oh, she looks like such a badass. Oh,
episode panel ever. She looks amazing. And she's like, so he's like freaking out. He looks hilariously unhealthy and nervous. I heard you fellas been picking on my son. And it's just a great image. He's there and he's protected by, and Benjamin's there looking, snotty and little. And he's protected by all these guys and his mom. And it's just great. Oh, now we go back to Tora and Poppy. And we have her blank face again. And she looks down and she kind of looks sad because she doesn't know what to say. And she doesn't know what to think either. So
this is an interesting parallel. You leave Candy with 5 men behind her, standing at attention, ready for her orders, and Benjamin by her side. And then you scroll down to Poppy alone in the dark and facing these guys. And it's like, you see where Benjamin's story went after he ran away. And you see now we're coming to Poppy, and like the way they're unfolding is so, it's like parallel, but not in a weird way. And it's just really like the juxtaposition of the 2 women is very striking in them.
Yeah.
She starts stammering and she's, what?
No, it was a good point.
Yeah, so she starts stammering. She's like, and then you see the guy in front is like crying. And one of the other guys is like, bro, this about Jessica again? He's like, shut the fuck up. Don't mention that name in front of me. I'm like, you gotta move on, man. It's been 2 effing years. Whatever, enough stalling. Let's get this over with. It's so cute. Like, clearly he had history with a girl named Jessica who was a civilian, and maybe she turned him in, and it didn't go well, and it's so sad.
Well, it's so interesting that he hit that on the head with Poppy, but he was totally projecting like his own experience onto her. And I'm like, that reminded me of when Tora and Poppy leave the restaurant and he's run out and he's like, so you fell in love with me? And I was like, you were so projected, like you were in love with her already and you don't even know it. It's just falling out of your mouth and you think that she's obsessed with you and it's the other way around. It's very interesting how people project their own stuff on to these characters. It happens a lot more than you'd like to, like it happens more than I think it does, I guess.
Very true. That was very well observed. And Poppy is, looking at him and you could see she's really thinking and absorbing what he says. And now he, with tears in his eyes still, the guy looks up at Tora and he's like, the effer looks like he could do some serious damage, but I doubt he'll be back down without a fight. And Nicholas is going to kill us if we And at this one, he looks and he sees Poppy and Tora's legs are close together. And we have Tora's thoughts now. And we have, Tora, I'm a simple man. So Tora's thinking. Now, it sounds like we are guessing that this is Joe talking to him. And when he was younger. And now we have Tora is, he's reaching down and he's cradling Poppy's face in his hands. So Poppy tells Tora, your cigarette smoke is getting into my eye. And he says, shit, sorry, I'll put it out in a sec. Let me have this smoke. And we know that Tora uses this smoking to kind of get like a positive reinforcement, positive feedback whenever he's stressed out. So clearly he's stressed, unsurprised. And she says, okay. And then and she's like, but are you going to let me in on the plan at least? He's like, no plan, sweetheart, just play along. And he rests his forehead against hers. And Poppy notices that his hand is shaking. And I want to, the dialogue in the back, I kind of want to do it all at once because it's going to be hard to keep track of if we do it intermittently. And now we have a close-up of their feet again and the noise all around them, surrounding them. And at this point, Poppy stands up on her tippy toes and kisses him. And the text that we have from behind, let's do it together. He says, Tora, I'm a simple man and I don't have much wisdom to share with you, but there's one thing I need you to remember. No matter how dark it gets inside you, always remember to leave a light on so that someday someone will be able to find it in there. And all that is interspersed with their kiss, Poppy reaching up to kiss him responding. And we see that close up of his hand shaking. His hand is shaking and the blood is like coming out from underneath his fingernails. And then the next one, he drops the cigarette, puts his hand on Poppy's neck, and the hand stops shaking. And the cigarette falls down to the floor. And then the last panel is of their kiss. So, analysis. Vita, you had a lot to say on this.
Yeah, I did. I don't know, like whenever it comes to Lily, I realized that you really do, I just have to take each scene and break it down to really, and it really creates just such a more in-depth, beautiful picture of the entire thing. So a couple of things that we know, especially starting at the scene where Poppy starts to tear up, like Tora has said in the past, has acted in the past to make Poppy comfortable when he's smoking. Like she'll cough and he'll put out the cigarette. So we know that Tora is like emotionally unstable right now, like just full of stress, full of anxiety, despair, etc. with the situation, and really wanting to protect Poppy in this situation that is just completely out of control. He uses smoking to feel more in control, and the fact that he's using it to the extent that it's making Poppy uncomfortable just speaks volumes about how out of control Tora feels in this exact moment. And you can tell too, not just with him continuing to smoke, but also with Poppy mentioning that his hands are shaking as well. And he's telling her too, like, hey, I just need to smoke real quick. So we know that he's feeling, like I mentioned before, just out of control. And what's really nice is that he's just kind of trying to ground himself in this moment. And that's him as he's resting his forehead against Poppy. Sorry about the noise. Yeah, so that's just, we see that he's trying to collect himself as he's resting his head against Poppy's forehead. He has the smoke. He's starting to feel in control. It's kind of like his little Zen moment. And, to reestablish and figure out what to do from here. And that's also when Poppy notices that just how anxious he is based on him shaking his hands. Now, you'll remember I don't remember the chapter, but when they're in Tora's apartment and they're having that cute little back and forth, and Poppy's like, you shouldn't smoke when you're sick. And Tora's like, well, I do this to feel in control of situations, And his counter proposal for Poppy to stop smoking was to get kisses from her. And obviously it was never really agreed upon, but Poppy knows that when Tora feels stressed and out of control, one of the things that he likes is, you know, having one of her kisses. So we go to the other panels. And again, this is why there's a couple of reasons why I think this is completely on Poppy and why this wasn't premeditated or her following along. He was already zoning out. And when Poppy finally goes to kiss Tora, he is surprised, like his eyes now open wide in surprise. And yeah, and I think it's just really well done, you know, just kind of breaking down each little panel. The fact that, as you mentioned as well later on, his fist does stop shaking as well. So maybe we could even extrapolate it further, and Poppy's kisses calm him down even more than cigarettes ever have to begin with, which makes sense with their character arcs. So yeah, the thing that just got me so freaking excited was the fact that Poppy like recognized just how stressed and out of control he was and gave him what he needed in that moment. And yeah, that's how I interpreted it. Love this scene. Absolutely love this scene. Also, I see that Tanya joined us, and I just want to say hi real quick.
Hi. Hi.
I mean, breaking it down like that, right? It's deceptively, I wouldn't say it's deceptively simple, like we already know it's not, but then when you break it down, it's just, there's so much depth behind it.
So much.
So, what other thoughts do we have? I mean, I just read through the panels quickly so that you guys can fill in all the details with your analysis.
I think for me, it was just the use of the cigarette. I know we talked about it before, but like, again, going back to even the cigarette in front, like with Tora and Poppy together, the cigarette no longer holds kind of like this weaponized use.
Yeah.
Because this scene reminded me a lot of the scene with Tora and Claude in the restaurant, where he's shoving the cigarette in Claude's eyes, and his eyes are getting really red. And when Poppy says, "Your smoke's getting in my eye," Tora's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Just please give me this one moment. I need to like anchor myself here because I'm gonna lose my mind." And even with Poppy's already like, with the kiss, it becomes like there's a literal illustration. Obviously, it's a drawing of the cigarette falling out of his hands because Poppy's replaced it with something else, like Vita was saying. And I just thought it was such a strong metaphor of kind of where this story will go. Like the weapon will be replaced with something else, or like I don't know. It was just, it was so poignant to me, and seeing how his smoking was introduced in the very beginning of the series as kind of like this badass thing, and you know, he even uses the cigarette to intimidate people, and now it's kind of like he's literally letting it go in certain situations. So I thought that was really powerful and a great parallel to the growth of both Poppy and Tora.
Well, I mean, in agreement with what you've said as well. I think what I saw about the smoking, for him, it gives him a chance to think, reflect before he takes action, whatever the action, like you said, before he attacked someone with the cigarette, or, you know, or he chain smokes or whatever. But I think for this particular panel, he was definitely smoking so that he could think how he was going to plan his next move. And you know, in a way, it sort of worked out in one way or another, because he would have, you know, he's known for a bad temper. So I admit, I thought he was going to use it just to give an impression where he was going to use it just to think, so that the guys that wanted to attack Poppy put them off guard, then he goes in for it. But it didn't work out like that. So it actually worked out much better. Like I said, the cigarette no longer has a significant meaning for being a sort of a support system for him now. Now there's Poppy that's actually sort of taken over, and you know, in a way that I think that's a beautiful moment, rather than filling your smoke with lungs. Fill yourself with a beautiful kiss, I think. From my angle anyway.
I love that. That's really well said.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, And the fact that Joe's words are now coming up, and I'm not sure if Tora is necessarily even thinking it, or if it's more like an omniscient narrator kind of giving us this mystical, narration. But first of all, we can see from this that Joe was, yes, while simple, maybe he wouldn't be able to articulate what he said in sophisticated language, and maybe he, never had mental health training, but what he said was so powerful. It was short and simple, and it obviously has reverberated into Tora, so much so that it's maybe consciously echoing in his head, maybe not, but what he's saying is, leave the light on, leave your soul. Don't let the mafia take over every part of you. Don't let it, turn you into a vicious monster. Leave the good part of you on inside, and someone will find you. And that is Poppy. That's what Poppy is doing. Poppy sees the good part of him that nobody else sees. And it's, that light hopefully is going to, go from being this tiny little candle to hopefully being a nice warm fire and, burn away all the violent outside with Poppy's help.
And then just adding on to your idea too, we remember Poppy's own monologue earlier her inner thoughts earlier in the chapter. She's saying how differences force people together, but similarities bring them back together. So the fact that Tori even has this light is what, and obviously Poppy, it's easier to see with Poppy because she is more of a regular person, but that's what's drawing them together. The fact that they're both good people, they both have this inner light, and they're both focusing more on what they have, the similarities they have, even though they are so different from each other. And yeah, it's what's holding them together. And I had one other thing I wanted to share too. It was more just the this is again juxtaposing Poppy and Tora and finding parallels between them and for their personality. Poppy, I feel is very organized, and she is very by the book type of thing. And obviously Tora grew up in chaos. And what's really interesting, whether this was intentional or not on Poppy's part, she references both in this chapter. Literally, she mentions with Poppy, what do I have to offer Tora other than stationery and glittering pencils, which is the most organized thing that you could even think of. And then in one of her, further down, she's also thinking about Tora and the fact that he grew up in this chaos. And I thought that was really interesting how she was using Poppy's specific internal monologue to highlight the differences in their personality. And more than that, just highlight how they're both handling the current situation, because obviously it is really chaotic. This is Tora's element. He has thrived in this previously. And now, they're just forced to see different situations from each other's points of view. And I think that's where a lot of this tension for this second season is going to be coming from. Tora thinking of Poppy in his world, and how frightening that is on his end, and probably for her as well. So yeah, just another parallel that I wanted to point out.
Actually, you have a point there, because I remember from the earlier episodes, Vincent Balterman wanted Tora to get rid of Poppy, if I remember rightly. I can't remember, it's somewhere in season 1 as well. And what's going to be very interesting is how he's going to hide her from Vincent. How's he going to do it? But also how she's connected to the clans anyway, because I have this feeling her mum's might be involved in the rival clan, or he might be even related to Quincy in one way or another. So this will be very interesting as well, if she's going to find herself sort of sandwiched between the gangs and how it's going to all work out. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited to learn more about that element. I'm waiting for a big surprise. I don't know what it'll be, but I'm totally anticipating something shocking. So what are our final thoughts on this episode overall?
Oh yes, okay. I just wanted to just recap on something else as well, a little bit where Ben is calling up Poppy just to check if she's okay, and his mum is there, and the mother likes Tora. Tora likes Poppy. It's a bit like Midsummer's Night Dream, I think, a bit like a Shakespearean play in a way. So it'd be quite interesting how the relationship's going to be between Candy and Poppy as well. So this would be very, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely agree. I can't wait to see how that relationship unfolds.
Tori, you're on mute.
Tori, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm interested to see how this whole scene gets around to other people. Like, we are viewing it as the audience, we're seeing it. How is it going to reverberate within the Erie Street area? Will it? I think, I don't know. I'm just really nervous because it makes me wonder, like Tanya was saying, like, how is he going to hide her? Has he already been seen, you know? And are people going to talk? And I'm nervous. I'm very nervous about how this is going to either change the dynamic, or I don't know. There's just a lot of unknowns. So I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Tori, because remember Goliath as well, who plays a pivotal part in as to why everything kicked off in the first place as well. So this will be very interesting. In, you know, will Tora go and put Poppy to hide with Goliath or something? I don't know. Will they escape to another country? You know, hide in a submarine? You never, you never know. But it is going to be so exciting, you know, in that respect. And I wanted to also say I believe Goliath and Tora are related. I also think they are cousins or brothers, because of when in the last season Tora mentioned about they were all in the children's home before that they were, and I said it's in inverted commas, sort of taken on by the Boltman clan and sort of groomed, and I'm going to use that word, groomed to be gangsters as well. So I feel that they're related.
I don't think Goliath was ever in the volumes though, because he asked Tora, there's a flashback when they're kids, and he asked Tora, oh, is that your boss's kid? When he's talking about Quincy, when they're by Regina's Peak, and he's remembering how he pulled Quincy's pants off. So
yeah.
It doesn't sound like he was ever part of the Volumen clan. But
well, yeah. no, because I think he went to not nine. I can't remember. But he was with the Nine Daggers or with another clan. That yeah. Okay, so maybe they were all, you know, I don't even want to use the word brought up, but taken on by the various clans. And also you could see how the children are exploited as well in that respect to provide fodder or manpower in a loose term, to fund their illegal activities. But it's still fun. Well, fun in the sense, fun to see what's going to happen next in that respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, for us FastPass users, I think this was such a great way to start the season. Like, you have the suspense of the whole chase scene. She gives us something like that. Like, she gives us fan service, so to speak, with the fact that they're even kissing within the first, like, quote unquote episode for the FastPass users. Because you better, like, I'm sure that we all just zoomed through the first 4 episodes. So I think that was just beautifully done on Lily's part, while still giving us a little bit of suspense of like what the hell is going to happen for next week's episode. So I love the start to the season, and I cannot wait to see what she does next.
All right. Well, if that's everything, then thank you so much for coming on, and thanks for coming on the second time. So really appreciate it, and yeah, looking forward to doing more episodes with y'all.
Oh, thanks, Mindy. Much obliged.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mindy. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.